All right, we're gonna bring up Bob Chapman. I think is that you, Bob?
It is.
How you doing tonight?
Pretty good.
Good.
Great to talk to you again, Bob. Awesome to hear your voice.
Thank you.
So we haven't talked to you since before Christmas. I don't know if a lot has gone down since then to Europe and stuff like that, and that's usually what we try to get when we talk to you. So yeah, what's going on in Europe?
Well, about 3 weeks ago, the Federal Reserve, in process of breaking regulations, lent $1 trillion to the European Central Bank. And this $1 trillion in a what they call a oh gosh, it's getting late. I'm getting tired. What they call a fractional banking system will allow the men in Europe who are in banking to lend an awful lot more money than people realize. And I think what is really disconcerting here is that I'm the only one to come out with this information worldwide. And then finally, Credit Suisse's top analyst come out and said the same thing. Then nobody else came out. It's like it's secret, a big secret, that they've essentially dumped the possibility of $10 trillion on these banks.
Wow.
And that means they, I guess, won't need any money for a while. And they had to do that because of so many of the problems. And you get Greece might fold and go bankrupt, default. They may leave the euro. And who knows where that might spread. We may be talking about Ireland and Portugal and maybe even Italy and Belgium and Spain. And so I think it's, even though they have the money, which the Fed gloriously made up out of thin air, I don't think it's going to do them that much good on the long term. The short term, I think it'll take them over the humps this year. And yes, I think there's a good chance the Eurozone will lose some members. And you know, they're talking about implementing a tax on financial transactions. And were they to do that, to make it work, they'd have to do it worldwide. And everybody would have to agree. And I don't know that they're going to get that sort of compliance and agreement. So I don't think that's doable, although they wanted to do that, plus have the carbon tax as a method along with this transaction tax. It would probably run together around 40%. And they would use that money to further their aims. And so I think that's where that's going. I see coming out of the European capitals the fact that there's going to be no growth this year. It'll be minus 0.5%. And I think they're underestimating the amount of money that's going to be thrown into the system. And be as it may, that's going to cause a pickup in the activity in GDP. And I think it'll help the GDP in England and the United States as well. And so I see them all doing 1.5%, 2% for the year, which really is good, considering they were all minuses 3 or 4 weeks ago. And so with that said, I think we're looking at inflation, more of it. I had to laugh today. The government came out and said inflation was 3%. and it's really 11.6%. But they can play their little games for the dingbats who listen to them. And at the same time, they're using the President's Working Group on Financial Markets to prop up the stock exchanges throughout the world and trying to drive commodities and gold and silver down in value. And they'll continue to do that during the year. But I think gold and silver will go perpetually higher.
Interesting. Very.
How bad will the inflation get, Bob, could you say, in the next year? Are they going to be able to keep that down to that 11.6, or is that going to go up, and how high, do you think?
By the looks of the cost increases in incoming goods of all kinds, I think what's going to happen is that you're going to see a level year. And in that, it's going to be very difficult to accomplish anything. Higher unemployment. What will happen to the dollar and to inflation? I would say in the 10 to 12% area. And I've been a little disappointed that thus far this year we haven't seen much inflation coming from the extension and usage of QE2, but it'll show up sooner or later. So the second half of the year is going to be much more inflationary than the first half.
So they're keeping it afloat for 2012. It kind of sounds like they're pumping the system and propping it as we get towards the big election, and then quite possibly, what are you calling for 2013 at this point? All chaos?
Well, there'll be more difficulties than there were before. It all depends. If Ron Paul gets elected, it changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
And if he doesn't get elected president, you can sort of, for the next few years, kiss it goodbye. The game's over.
Yeah, that's what we've been hearing from a lot of people. Every one of our guests, we're talking about SOPA, Obamacare, all the mandates saying we could kiss life goodbye as we know, and a communist or totalitarian state. So what are you thinking about SOPA, the Online Piracy Act?
I don't think it's going to get passed. And,
why not?
But they'll be back with it.
NDA kind of snuck in the night of New Year's Eve.
That was
a beauty. But, what else would you suspect? That's
it's funny how you got Biden in the news, and he gets it wrong, saying, the Giants are going to the Super Bowl, and I think it's the 49ers. I don't even know who's going to the Super Bowl. But they don't get mad when their congressmen stand up and say they want to detain you and deny your right to a lawyer. What is stopping the American people, Bob, from waking up fully? I mean, what is holding us back? And I know some of it, but what is the key things?
They don't have any guts.
Bingo. No guts, exactly. No,
people won't even demonstrate when they're unemployed.
Well, a lot of, I think the unemployment thing is because people like Pelosi, who's standing there and saying unemployment is good. So they believe, a lot of them buy into it, that being employed is a really good thing because they get this free money from the other half of the country.
Yeah, but no guts, no glory.
But we got to have
no
guts.
Glory.
Right.
No risk, no reward.
Grab your balls and actually do something about it before it's too late.
That's what Bob's done his whole life.
Pretty much. I mean, it's not a joke.
Get out there and kick the New World Order's ass,
Yeah, there's just so much going on.
Well, what else, Bob? What else is on your mind in the news lately? There's just so much stuff, it's hard to even get to what is even the most important thing.
Well, I think we've covered some of the subjects. I think the saber rattling you see on the Strait of Hormuz is just that. I think they're playing a game here. I don't think they're ready for war. And do they really want to mix it up with the Chinese and the Russians? The Russians have already told them, you move into Iran and you're going to have to deal with us.
Mm-hmm.
I've been saying they like the threat. They like the threat of the war, and politically it's very advantageous for them to use that, because that's a good way to demonize people like Ron Paul, is to say, that you love Iran. Do you see that like I do, maybe, Bob, that they're using it like a Cold War kind of tension politically, and maybe they'll drag this out as long as they can before actually going to war?
Exactly.
As far as the Russians are concerned, are they even, they can put warships in certain areas of the world, but are they actually ready to fight a war? Do they actually have it done, or are they just kind of bluff us right now?
What do they bluff?
Well, I worked against the Russians for several years in counterintelligence, and then that's screwing around. And they're very good at what they do, and they've got some of the best equipment available. The Russians are very smart people, and they're not afraid to die.
Good point. Unlike a lot of Americans.
Who are being killed every day, yeah.
Yeah. Americans, as far as civilians.
Yeah, they're terrified of everything. They need the government to protect them and provide for them for everything. That might be another obstacle in our way.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there's going to be warfare soon. I don't think the logistics are in place. I think it's probably a year or longer. And then want to time it with the failure, economic and financially. So it could be some time off. And they'll keep on doing these dingbat things that they always do to keep people watching the scene in the Middle East instead of watching what's going on in the financial sectors of the Western world.
I have a big question about Iran, and this might be a little bit out there, but it's just a developing theory. In your mind, is there any chance or just any comments maybe about Iran, the mullahs, that they might actually kind of be working behind the scenes with the Anglo-American Empire, might have a deal, also relating to this political expediency we talked about a minute ago? Is there any chance of that in your mind? I wonder that sometimes, but I know it's hard to figure.
Well, of course. Just think of who put these people into power. We kicked out the Shah after we kicked out Mohammad Mossadegh, and then came the mullahs and Khomeini, and these guys are all working together, and until somebody double crosses each other, and that's the way it is. And the answer is a definite yes. You never know what side you're going to end up on. You don't know whose children you're going to murder.
Right.
And I'm a veteran, incidentally.
It just sounds crazy.
The truth usually does.
Right, exactly. That's always the hard part, is trying to swallow the information. And then the really hard part is talking about it and making people understand. Can't make them understand, but you can do what we're doing right now, and even more if we can. But what do we do? What do we do besides sit here? It's like, we could sit here and talk about it, and
we're kind of doing it.
I
disagree with the people who say talking doesn't help. Talking is everything. Wouldn't you agree, Bob, that just getting out there and getting the message out and talking and being in that debate and creating that debate,
isn't
that something? You could change the whole world by doing that, couldn't you, Bob?
It's a safe exchange when the alternative is getting shot at.
That's true.
So the answer is a very vehement yes. It's the idea to get enough people listening.
Right. You know what's funny is yesterday when all those websites did the blackout for the anti-SOPA campaign, some of them, like Wikipedia, they would black out their website and put in the zip code, the bar where you could put your zip code in, and then you could find out who your representatives are, and then the phone number and everything, so you can call them and protest. Now, most of the people yesterday that I talked to, and most of the people on the other show we did yesterday, pretty much disagreed with me on this, but I think that was a really good idea.
No, I don't think anybody disagreed with that. Just to clarify first, what you stepped into when you were on my show was that I was saying just far-fetchedly in my way that these protests, blacking out your website, is not the solution to trying to fight them censoring you. If the ultimate goal is that you stay online, why would these big websites shut themselves off? That seems to be the last thing I would do. And that's what I was saying. And I also said the protest, the people being against it is a fabulous thing. Of course I'm against this bill and all these horrible censorship bills. I'm suspicious of those big websites like Google and stuff being involved in shutting themselves off, when to me that's what you're trying to fight, I thought. Bob, what do you think of that?
Oh, I agree completely. And
really?
we got to be relentless. We got to be breathing down their collar every day, and we have been, and we got to continue it, even if Ron Paul were not to get elected. It's extraordinarily important because we're the only defense between the Illuminists and the public. And the public is relatively ignorant, and the Illuminists, they want to kill us all.
Absolutely. Basically, all I was saying is that people who use the Internet regularly would look at it and be like, oh my, we can't use this, we can get the information we need, and they actually do something, because I talk to people, they never even heard of the Stop Online PAC.
But I bet they didn't. I bet most people didn't.
What do you think, Julio, yesterday?
Really, this is one of those to me it seems like one of those system-supported protests. And that's what I wonder if you agree with, Bob, is that it seems to me that these websites, as much as they made us feel good and cushy and felt like we were fighting the bill, doesn't it seem like they're running a drill just to see if they could shut off all these websites? Like they're doing it in sectors, and they're saying it's a good thing.
Well, I think you're right. And I think the point was made. Mm-hmm. I think Congress is going to back off.
Good. I mean, that's what they got to do.
I mean, do they, the ultimate answer here is if you don't back off and you try to pass this thing, there's 40 million people that are going to drive to Washington, D.C., park their cars in the streets, and go to the Capitol.
That's
of course,
exactly right.
And tell them, look, we're just not going to put up with this anymore. We're demonstrating peaceably, and if you continue to do this sort of thing, we'll have to change our tactics. And they know what you mean.
I was going to switch gears actually into the election, and Bob, you've seen a few of these things, and to me, I've seen enough, but to me it seems like this is kind of a very odd primary situation that Ron Paul's in. Does this look like any other situation you've ever seen like this before, even just in the Republican Party with this, just with Ron Paul? Is there ever a candidate like this in this way?
Well, I'm trying to figure out an instance like that, and off the top of my head, I can't think of one. I mean, those kind of things vary so widely, and they're over a number of years. But the corruption that we're seeing now in the Republican Party is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Just unbelievable.
Over the top, right out and open, right in your face.
I mean, after what I've seen,
to admit it.
After two elections that were obviously rigged, I mean, you don't report eight districts in, and then the other one, people have got movies of you giving out names to vote with that are deceased persons. I mean, the only impetus to do that would have to come from the Republican National Committee. So they're criminals. Now the whole thing just stinks to high heaven.
They're thugs. They're crooks. The whole party thing, it's way out of control. There's only two of them, so they can do whatever the heck they want. And it seems like they did make a deal at some point back in the 90s, probably after the Perot situation, that they would never allow a third party to ever really have any chance ever again.
Yeah, I think you're right. Absolutely. They learned their lesson. They control everything. They bought everybody practically. And they're going to show us that there are mentors and dictators, and next they'll start putting people in jail, and people like you and me will be hunted down like animals. And don't you think they won't?
Yep.
Yeah, and we should be hunted down for our skills.
You know what?
It's going to become reality if we don't stop them. And so if you see them coming, make sure you get a Barrett and you're taking shots 1,000 to 2,000 yards away. You don't want them near you.
Damn. Very good advice.
When it comes to that, a lot of people are goners, and a lot of people don't stand a chance. But if they can't keep it secret and other Americans see this going on, they could have trouble. That could be trouble that they might not even want.
Well, they got to have the equipment and the firepower, and I think they get too much dissension. There's too many people who just won't play ball with them.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I think they're very concerned about that.
The military is not buying any of this either, are they, Bob? The military is really not supporting the NDAA or any of this stuff that's in the expatriation acts now that I haven't had time to really dig into. The military is not going along, are they?
Well, some of them will. 15 to 20%, and the rest of them will shoot them. And
military
that's what they want. That's what they got.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody come out openly, any military, and I suppose that they wouldn't. Of course they wouldn't come out
They're scared to
openly
death. They'll lose everything.
Yeah, but you hear a lot of people coming out against it, even, in uniform, which you're not supposed to do, of course.
That's true. But, telling the President of the United States, no, I'm not going to do that, it's an unlawful order. Mm-hmm. Big difference.
Yes. Hey, Bob, did you mention Portugal? I believe you had predicted last time we talked to you that Portugal would go into default, and I'm seeing that in the news right now that Portugal, it looks like Portugal is going to go into default. Did you touch on that?
Well, I did say that. I've lived in Portugal, had a home there, and the Portuguese, they live in a different world. They're living in the 1940s and 50s, and it's a very closed society. I think one of the reasons is that Portuguese is a very difficult language to learn, and so they don't have many foreigners, such as Spaniards, running around Portugal speaking Portuguese. So Portugal is living in another area in many ways, and they should just be on their own.
Yeah, away from these big deals. And it's funny, I called into a show, Bob, and they were talking about Zambian politics, Zambia, recently. I don't know anything about Zambian politics, but just from knowing what goes on in the world with these, anytime you get a big international deal that, the UN or the European Union or anybody's going to come in and help you, that country faces imminent destruction, okay? Promised destruction, no matter what it is.
Well, I think that's so.
First of all, yeah.
I've had former heads of governments have dinner with me and tell me that the U.S. government told them to do this, that, and the other thing, and if they didn't, they'd destroy them. Period. And they do it economically.
Yeah, that's exactly what I see. And I call them to the show, and that's what I explained to them. And it's amazing. I asked them about the Anglo-American Empire and what this professor, this big-time professor, has to say about the New World Order. And his comment is classic because he gives you the old, I will not comment on that, sir.
Yeah.
And it's great. But then callers proceed from all over the world to call in and say, Australia or whatever. I agree with Barry. People know about this stuff around the world, seemingly more than in America, I would say. Would you say that people are more awake around the world in Europe and where you've been compared to America?
Europe, yes. Mexico, Central, South America, no. Asia, probably generally speaking, no. And but Europe, they've known this stuff for centuries.
Mm-hmm. So the people have been going through it, and they haven't mastered how to stop the globalists, but they haven't come up with a very good plan either. And it seems like if you change the plan, the globalists do an even better job at creating central banks, and if we shut it down, they'll just create a new one or or something like that. If we get rid of him as the president, they'll just put another one in there. It's just a never-ending thing.
Well, now it's Ron Paul, right?
Right. Hopefully.
What has to happen to get Ron Paul elected, Bob? What would have to happen? I
can't answer that because I really don't know.
Yeah.
I know that he's beating everybody else in the polls. I know that the voting is rigged. You don't have to know anything else. The whole kit and caboodle is just totally corrupt.
Yeah, corruption at its finest, or its worst. Those videos, voting fraud videos of the guys going up and asking for a Democratic voting ballot. I'm not a big fan of having identification for really any reason, whether it's buy beer and cigarettes or to drive a car.
Yeah.
But that's more of a sacred thing Should we have IDs for that? There's a lot of people there who are pro Ron Paul, but they don't believe we should have ID to go up to the booth and prove who we are.
Well, yeah,
but
we could survive without that, couldn't we? Can we?
Well, I think one piece of information is fine, and that should be sufficient. We used to use a driver's license, so that should do it. We don't need all this other crap to go along with it. And so they would just want to control us through databases, and we know that, and that's why we wanted to stop.
Right. It's just one thing, but the establishment happens to be against having identification to go to vote. Everything else,
yeah, when it comes to letting people vote, then that's no problem.
Well, because of the tenor of government today, they should get the one piece, and that's it.
Yeah, an identification card just for voting. Most people who have drivers shouldn't even drive. That's a fact. I don't know. It drives me crazy.
Well, in no way does having a driver's license make you a better driver. That is true. I've heard other people say that, and that is true. Just because you have a piece of plastic that says you can drive, that doesn't mean. I mean, people believe in the whole government thing, way more than they probably should.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But about the big Ron Paul sign that is in Grand Rapids, Minnesota.
Yes, my town has put up a giant Ron Paul sign, and it looks great, Bob. It's got the Constitution, and it says "We the People" behind it, with the Constitution there behind Ron Paul. It's fantastic.
It is great. Absolutely.
I never thought I'd see it.
And we can follow it with "No More War."
Yeah.
Hopefully.
All 7 wars that we're in right now today. I was watching a video recently of General Wesley Clark, former general, that is, and he was talking about his visit to the Pentagon prior to the invasion of Iraq, and how a young officer had a memo stating the United States would invade 7 countries.
Oh, yeah.
And it happened. It happened, every one of them. From countries in Africa, from basically Syria to Afghanistan. Well, not Afghanistan, we were there already. Iraq, and I believe Iran might be on that list. So yeah,
I think it was.
Yeah, and he gave his speech in 2007. But yeah,
is that neocon wishful thinking? Is that the question?
I don't know, but if there are more memos out there, we got to get a hold of them. I mean,
good luck.
Well, I'm being dead serious,
Well, if they're out there, we got them, But
well, this is a call to the people who can get that stuff. Put it out there.
Yeah.
Be a Bradley Manning. He didn't even put anything dangerous out there.
No, actually, that'll help the system. Oddly enough, how do you see WikiLeaks, Bob? Is that the same kind of thing? This system-supported protest, Bob? Do you think?
Well, I think all of those major things like that are all controlled by the government.
Even anonymous and all that?
It's hard to tell each by each, but,
yeah.
I even see people who have developed large companies that come out of nowhere with an idea, and all of a sudden they're very successful, and the media is very generous to them. Mm-hmm. And they build these big companies up, and, on the razor's edge, so to speak. And what happens next? They become idols. And then they take all the money and they put it in the trust and do things that we don't want them to do with it.
That's so true. That's so true.
I mean, Bill Gates is a good example, and Steve Jobs would have done the same thing. So what I'm saying to you is these people were chosen to do what they did.
But they didn't really pick that life. It was kind of forced, or they had every...
Probably offered, do you think, Bob? Offered...
yeah, they were asked.
Yeah.
Do you want to be rich and famous? And who's going to say no? In our society.
Born into it, too.
I'll say no.
They're all part of bloodlines, aren't they? Aren't they all related, Bob? A
lot of them are.
Much. Yeah.
A lot of them are.
I would never. And I know it's probably something hard to say, but if they offered me $10 million to keep my mouth shut and talk about conservative garbage or liberal conservative crap, I wouldn't do it. For some reason, I happen to love my family and pretty much everybody in the world, even the enemies. I care about them, and I can live with myself. I don't know how these guys do it, the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, the people that actually take the bait. It's sick. Alex Jones, he's always talking about how he's been offered the big money to do major network like television and stuff, and he said no. And look at him. He's doing really good. He's doing really good for himself. And Infowars.com. I mean, it's all very successful, and he hasn't had any help from from outside. So I think that's something that
Well, I've been on the air with him for about 12, 14 years.
Wow. Well, hopefully there will be another 14 years to go.
Well, I'm hoping for that.
If we could, if we could beat the.
That would take me up to 90.
You got to be honest with you. You sound, I don't know, 40, 45. I mean, people who are a little older do sound, they have a more raspy voice stuff. But you don't have that.
I've been de-rasped.
You sound useful, full of life.
Like getting your tonsils out.
Yeah.
To me, Bob always sounds so full of life and useful.
Well, I had my tonsils taken out when I was 5. Horrible experience.
Oh, that is really?
Oh, that was a fad during the 40s and 30s and 40s. And then after the war, the big fad was everybody wanted their appendix taken out.
What?
You won't hear this from people unless you run into me who lived during that time.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing too. And that's where all that came from. It's almost like they ran those out to make a bunch of money on this and then make a bunch of money on that. You got to do this and you got to do that. Kind of like all the different vaccines now and stuff. It's just they want you to take like 109 of them or something. It's out of control.
I was asked by an organization, because I had lived in Africa and spoke one of the languages, to go into Sierra Leone with a strike force, and these were mercenaries. So I said, well, what's the situation with the shots? And they said, I don't know, just go find out. So I called the CDC in Atlanta and told them where I might go. And they said, oh, that's easy, that's 22 shots. 22 different shots. I called the people back and said, and this wasn't very long ago. This is like 12 or 14 years ago. And I was in my early 60s. And I called them and said, I'm too old. Go find somebody else. They were very disappointed.
A pincushion or something. And that's probably by now, it's probably like 40.
Who knows?
How are you even supposed to survive that? God knows what's in there.
I don't know, but it's a hard one.
Good times. Like I said, we haven't talked to you since, I think, before Christmas. How did golfing go for you? I wanted to ask you.
Oh, yeah, you're going to do some golfing. How did it go?
I always golf.
Always golf.
I play pretty good. I play in the low 90s, and for a man my age, that's pretty good. But I lost about 30 pounds, and so I'm not hitting the ball 270 anymore on the drives. I'm hitting it about 230, and I'm very, very disappointed. That's not fair. So now I got to be darn sure that I'm straight.
But we're going to go, Bob.
Yeah, great talking to you, Bob.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
We are having technical issues because of the ice storm that we're having here in the Seattle, Washington area, and a lot of weird phenomenon going on.
You mean like snow?
Actually, that too. We had a foot last night, and Julio Rousseau, he mentioned something about some kind of something was going on McCord Air Force Base, and he could see it on the radar, and I was like, wait, what? You're freaking me out. So something they did here made it snow and then rain. People can't go anywhere.
That's possible. It's very possible.
They weren't ready.
It's 20-some below here.
Yeah.
Here in Minnesota, it's 20-some below.
Really?
It's been very cold everywhere this winter, and even colder than the last 5 or 6 winters.
And you want to plug the website?
Sure, I'll tell you about the publication. The International Forecaster is about business, finance, economic, social, and political issues throughout the world. And it is published on Wednesday and Saturdays by email, runs around 35 pages, 40 pages each time. And we also have a hard copy that goes out to those who are not on the Internet twice a month. And everything you need to know every week is in that publication. You can get a free introductory copy by going to theinternationalforecaster.com. Theinternational, FORECASTER.com. You can also go to www.intforecaster.com, into forecaster.com, for those of you who would like to ask a question, and we answer everyone. And I'm the only one in the business that does that, and sometimes multiply. If you would also like to get copies of the publication, or if you like to get our new report on gold and silver shares, all you have to do is email us, and that address is Bob, B-O-B, at INTFORECASTER.com. Bob at intforecaster.com. And for those of you who would like to call toll free, that number is 877-479-8178. That's 877-479-8178. You can get copies there. And also, for those of you who would like to become a subscriber, they have a special offering there, and you can get a free 1-year subscription. And the offer that they're making is really terrific, so take advantage of it.
Well, we'll let you go, and hopefully it's time we won't have so many.
You guys hang in there, and I'll be back when you want me.
Awesome. Boss. Can't wait to talk to you again.
Okay, great.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Good night.